What's up, Buncombe? It's Abby. Here at the podcast, we're going to talk about Buncombe County, all its trials, its tribulations, and how we're going to make it better.
Raise a flag of liberty, the land of the free, rejecting tyranny.
Today, we are here joined by David Goetze, otherwise known as Major Dave. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you, Abby.
So, I know that you are with the Electoral Education Foundation. Could you
That's
tell
correct.
us a little bit about how you came to be involved in this and what it is?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Um, it's actually been a long road because I've been at this for the last 8 years. I got involved in politics back in 2010, 2011. I became a fellow at the North Carolina Institute of Political Leadership, went through their 6-month training plan on everything to do with running a campaign, winning an election. Um, in 2016, I actually got involved, though, with election data. And I began to find a number of regularities. These irregularities were chronicled in a DVD that I put out and called Autopsy of an Election. And I tore apart some of the data files. And the things I found were so alarming, I actually took them to Raleigh, to Dan Forrest's office when he was then lieutenant governor, and briefed his chief of staff, Hal Weatherman. Well, Hal followed my work over the years since then. And about 2 years ago, he realized that I was in need of more tools to do deeper digging, to take on more files and more records. And he created this Electoral Education Foundation. He went out and found a couple of angel donors who wrote some very nice checks to allow me to buy a much larger, faster computer, a high-speed printer, a cone binding machine for documents that I've used in making presentations to the legislature in Raleigh. And it's just grown one thing after another. But what people should know is in the military, in my 20-year career, I was military police. I started out in the enlisted ranks. I spent 8 years, and I was trained as a criminal investigator. And that's part of my natural curiosity. When I see things in the data that don't make sense, I want to dig deeper and get answers. If the data is changing, I want to find out who changed it, why it was changed, and what the impact of that change was. And so tonight, I'll hope to just give your people a brief overview of the type of work I'm doing, and then hopefully come back for other podcasts where we can talk about specific issues in election return data and voter registration data.
Yeah. So first of all, I'd like to say on behalf of all of Fix Buncombe, thank you for your service and
Quite
thank you
well.
for what you're doing for North Carolina. Could you, elaborate a little bit on your military background and how that's influenced what you're doing today?
Well, the military, and I thank the good Lord for being where I am today, because He's made sure that I had that initial law enforcement training when I was in the military. He made sure that in one of my assignments, when I was assigned to the Pentagon in 1989, I was working with relational databases. And that's been the key to really digging deeper, because up until January of this year, I was working with spreadsheets. And just for example, if Buncombe County has 300,000 voters on their rolls, and I compare last week's voter roll to this week, that's 600,000 lines to scroll through looking for changes. But with a database, it can sort through. And they even sent me to contracting school at Fort Lee, Virginia at one point. So I have a background in government contracting as well. And I found serious irregularities in how the original contract in 2005 was awarded that gave ES&S a sole source for all election equipment in North Carolina. That would be a great topic for another podcast at some time, because it's all connected. And so as things have grown, the Lord has opened doors for me. I now have about 60 members of the legislature between the House and the Senate that are very well aware of my work, and about a dozen of them who follow it very closely. The biggest problem that I have, and other nonprofits like us, is when we go to Raleigh and knock on a legislator's door, we're lucky to get 3 to 5 minutes to explain our issue to them. Well, what I have found is so overwhelming, you can't do that. It's taken these 8 years of gradually building this relationship with these legislators. And I will tell you, that last fall, when we submitted our most recent white paper, which is our list of recommendations of changes we'd like to see made in election laws, a key senator sat with me in his office for 90 minutes. We went through that document line by line, page by page, and he is an attorney. He knows this stuff. And that's the kind of relationship I built with him and he and his staff. And because of that, in 2020, I got 3 measures passed into law.
Wow.
Session Law 2020-17. And then this past fall, with Senate Bill 747, 749, we got another 5 measures included into that legislation. So we are taken very seriously. And I know that's why Hal was willing to get behind me and put the foundation together to let us take things to the next level.
Wow, that's extremely impressive. So for those of us, and myself included, who just recently got involved in the world of politics, could you explain a little bit about what a white paper is?
A white paper is just a formal presentation by one organization to another. It's meant to be a summary, an executive summary, if you will, kind of a Reader's Digest version, for those who know what that is, of the key issues in play. Again, because the legislators' time is so limited. And if I've learned anything about those legislators in Raleigh, and this does not demean them in any way, they don't know any more about how this election system is run than the average citizen does. They don't know what kind of files are out there or what kind of data it contains. So when you're going to show them that there are discrepancies in the file, you have to take some time to give them some background on just what all these files and stuff are. And tonight I brought some samples just to give you a taste. And I'm actually using election data from Buncombe County. Since January 5th of this year, I have uploaded data files from the State Board of Elections that I downloaded from their website, and I have uploaded over 2 billion lines of data
Wow.
into that database. You see, they publish a snapshot file. They do it the 1st of January in every year, and they do it on every election day. And the earliest one available on the State Board's website is from 2005. That file contains all registrations going back 10 years. So in essence, in that 2 billion lines, I have every voter record, allegedly, that has been in existence since 1995. I've got 30 years worth of voter records.
Wow.
You know, you hear when people talk about their voter history, it shows when and where they voted in an election. Do they vote absentee or in person? I can now generate a registration history. And it shows how that voter's registration appeared in each one of those files. And there's 63 versions between 2005 and the most recent May 14th second primary that we just had here in North Carolina. What I look for are gaps. Is it in one report, not in the next? If it disappeared, why did it disappear? These are the types of things that the conspiracy theorists out there would say, well, is there a pool of phantom voters? There may be. How do we know? Well, I know if a person's record is in the file, it shouldn't just disappear in the next file. And these are some examples that I'm going to get ready to show you here. I don't want this to run too long because it is overwhelming, but I do want your listeners out there to know that this is something that's ongoing. I work on this every single day, and I have for the last 8 years. That's how committed I am to it. The motto up here, Army Security Agency, that's who I served with in the military. That was military intelligence, and it says vigilant always. You have to stand up. If I can achieve anything by all of this, I want to convince the legislature that we need formal external oversight of the State Board of Elections data management, because all this stuff has been happening. And I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back, but if I hadn't done this, it would still be taking place and nobody would even know what's going on. So I'm going to sit down here to share my screen.
Okay. So this data that you've been collecting,
Yeah.
this data, so how can we utilize it to help ensure no cheating in elections?
If this is in fact overt fraud, then just letting them know that, hey, we're on to them. We know
Mhm.
how they're doing it. Most of it, I think, will just stop. You know, as much as I'd love to see a perp walk, see somebody putting handcuffs and the iron door slamming behind them, we'll probably never see that.
Yeah.
But we've got to convince the powers that be in Raleigh that we need uh, specific improvements in the oversight of that state board. Um, I'm sharing this with you now. I'm going to go ahead and go to my. It's not bring there. There you go. Can I bring up there? Um, okay. What you're looking at here, and I've redacted the last and first names. I Nothing in what I'm about to show you accuses any voter of doing anything wrong.
Okay.
This is just what the state board is doing with their data.
Okay.
In this data, you have a what's called an NCID number. That is your state voter ID number. So if you move from Buncombe County to Henderson County next door, that number should always stay the same. And that's how your voter history follows you from one county to another when you move. Next to it, the voter registration number is a number assigned by your county. That's in Buncombe County's records. That's how they know who you are.
Okay.
All of these records here come from county number 11, which is Buncombe. Every county in the state has a 2-digit unique identifier, and Buncombe's is 11, and it's in alphabetical order from Alamance all the way down to Yancey. And then the obviously address, you got the phone number, you've got the race code, ethnic code, what party code, the sex, the gender, age at year in, birth state, confidential, and then this field here called load date. Now, load date is the date that this data was pulled and put into this file. Look at that date, the 14th of May, 2024.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm going to show you some other examples here in a minute. All of these people were in the 2012 file for the general election in 2012, and they were not there in the January 2013 file 6 weeks later.
Huh.
All these records disappeared. Let me get my number in front of me right here. It was somewhere statewide, somewhere along the lines of 12,000 records that just vanished. Now, let me switch windows and go to this. I pulled a Buncombe extract. This is all the Buncombe records that were part of that disappeared after that. I sorted it by number. And here's a record. The state ID number, AL 276877, for a young lady we'll just call Nicole. And then I pulled her registration history. And this tells me from those 63 files every time it appeared in a report. Now here it is showing up in November 6th of 2012 report. Fine. They registered then. Says they registered back in 2008. My first question is, why did it never appear in any of the snapshot files between 2005 and 2012? Or at least between 2008 and 2012. It's not there. And then you see here, there's no record for this state ID number in the 2013 January 1st version of the file, but it comes back in March. What happened to it? Why did it disappear? This is the level of detail, Abby, that we've had to take this down to
Mhm.
start showing patterns of movement in the data. Now, I mentioned just a few minutes ago about that load date of when this data was pulled for this record. And I'll go all the way over here to the side. I may have to move that out of the way. Look at the load date. April 14th, 2021. Somebody went back in and altered this record in 2021.
Huh.
The next one below it, these three records from the March 2013 file were all updated January 31st of 2022. Who's going back in and changing the stuff? Why is all this happening? And I'll be as frank and candid as I can. I don't know. But I am convinced that it's not right. And the only way we can ever get somebody to stand up and pay attention and do something about it is to document it down to this level of detail. There's another example here. Come on. And we'll say this is Mr. Terrell. He's there in 2012. It disappears until 2014. It's not in any record. It shows back up as an active voter. Now, up above, one record is in a removed status as a duplicate, and the other record is inactive. Well, it should still stay in the system because you have to stay inactive and miss 2 federal elections. And that means every 2 years, the midterm and the general election, before you even go into removed status. Then you're supposed to stay in removed status for a full 10 years before they take your record out. Where was this person's record for a year and a half? It's not in any of the files. But you see, you also notice it's got 2 different county ID numbers. When it shows back up in 2014, it's got even a third different one, but it's smaller than this number. Now, these numbers are supposed to be entered in sequence. If you get number 1 and I walk in the door behind you, I should get number 2. So why are these numbers? And this is the confusing part to a lot of the audience out there, I know. But I want them to understand we have built this system since January with these 2 billion lines that we can now go in and track all this. We are in the process now of documenting it all. I can show you others that disappeared in 2012 that don't come back until 2016, yet their voter history says they voted in 2014. Yet that record is not in a snapshot file in any of the versions in 2013, 2014, or 2015, or early 2016. They pop back in. And that's why I am now calling this whole process, they vote and they vanish. These records are bouncing in and out like ping pong balls, Abby. And we've got to put a stop to it.
Absolutely.
I'm just a retired military officer, and thank God I am retired. I have the time to do this. But as I said earlier, the good Lord gave me the skill set to do this. It's not all that complicated as far as the data management and the spreadsheets and stuff. But you've got to have a basic understanding of what this data is, what the elements say, when they say it, and how to detect this movement that has the highest correlation to voter fraud. I don't even know if these are real people. It could be fictitious. And we know there are people out there, especially on college campuses, registering people to vote. And most of them come from liberal organizations. And you fill out that form, yes, they may turn it into the Buncombe County Board of Elections, but there's nothing to stop them before they do from making a copy of that. And it has either your date of birth, your last 4 of your social security number, and your state driver's license. They can send those copies to these national get out the vote groups. They can now go out and create a voter record in your name with your data in any other state in the nation. Request a ballot, and because they have that personally identifying information, it's going to pass every audit they try to run it through. Because it's going to come back, it's going to match your name, it's going to match your age, it's going to match your social security number. They'll have no reason to be suspect. And the address they'll use for you is some ballot mill house. and they'll get a mail-in ballot sent to that address, and somebody's going to fill it out and forge your name and send it in. You'll never even know you voted in another state. And when they
Yeah.
find out and eventually do some cross-checking and they come knocking on your door, Abby, why did you vote in Colorado? Well, I didn't. I've never been to Colorado. You know, look at the liability that this could do. So there's so many issues here, and we are trying to convince people, do not deal with these third-party organizations at all. Deal directly with your county board of elections. That's why they're there. If you're an existing DMV customer in North Carolina, you can do all this online through the DMV website. You can change your address, you can change your party affiliation, etc. And that is the safest way to do it. Either do that or in person with your state board of elections. Now, nothing in the law requires you to vote. If you don't vote and you miss 2 federal elections, they're going to send you a card. And they may even do it sooner, just asking you to sign it and return it, saying, yes, I am this person. I still live at this address, because nothing says you have to vote. But you do have to periodically confirm your location, your address, and your name with your county board in order to stay on the roster as an active voter. So I hope this is beginning to give you some kind of overview. I'm going to stop sharing right now. And I welcome the opportunity to come back in the future and talk to the rest of your audience and show them more examples. I'll give you just a quick verbal example. In May 14th, when we had the second primary in North Carolina, Hal Weatherman was running against Jim O'Neill for lieutenant governor. And when they posted the results file, that results file has 2 columns with Jim's name at the top of one column and Hal's name at the top of the other. And then it lists every county and every precinct, and then every voting method, how many votes he got in that precinct on election day, how many from one stop, how many from provisional ballots, etc., or from by mail. When the polls closed at 7:30 on election night, Jim O'Neill's name is in the left column and Hal's is in the right column. And 45 minutes later, those 2 names reversed. Yes, the numbers didn't move. The names moved. Now, does that explain that Roy Cooper got Dan Forrest's votes in 2016? And, yeah, this is the level we look at the return data. We look at, they also publish a county status report. Now, the county status report comes out periodically on election night, and every time the county makes an upload to the state, because they don't wait till the end to submit all the precincts. They start feeding them in as the precincts bring their totals in and report them to the county. Well, what we did by that county status report, we look for changes in those results numbers when the county has not made an intervening upload since the last upload. If they upload at 8:15 and their numbers change at 8:30, but there's been no intervening upload since, why was it changed? What is the basis for that change? It's that complicated, but I do this because of you and all of your listeners out there. I live in Virginia. I moved to Virginia 5 years ago, but I'm a North Carolina native born and bred, and my heart is still in North Carolina. But I cannot stand, and maybe this is just the cop part of me, I can't stand you guys getting cheated out of your legitimate votes. And if this has anything to do with it, I'm going to keep working on it till I can either prove or disprove it one way or the other. You're so generous with your time with me. Thank you.
So what can we do to help with this, and what can we do to ensure that this doesn't happen anymore?
The first thing is to help get the word out, to share our social media posts. We have a Facebook page, we have Instagram, Twitter, and whatnot. You can go to our website, which is the Electoral Education Foundation.com. The short name is EEF, but the website is www.electoraleducationfoundation.com. We post videos there. We post our findings, our white papers, all of the documentation that we have gets posted there. I'll be honest with you, we've been so busy working on the data, we haven't paid a lot of attention to the website. We're looking for somebody out there who has some website management skills, maybe a young intern person who would be willing to help us out to keep that page updated, to make it more accessible. But we expect before November that we will have a major reveal, if you will, and put all of this out to the public. Now, I have to hurry to say, don't feel that the system is so rigged that you can't vote or you shouldn't vote. Why should I cast a ballot? You know, the whole thing's rigged. No, we have to make it too big to rig.
Yep.
We need everybody to turn out and vote, because the more people who vote, the more fraud it takes to overcome it. If you don't cast your ballot, that's 2 less ballots the other side now needs to win, 1 to tie and 1 to exceed. So we need everybody going to the polls in November. And for goodness sakes, vote the entire ballot, front and back. Do your
Yep.
homework before you go. Know who your school board members are, your county commissioners. These are the people that have actually a lot more impact on your daily lives as a parent of students and things like that, and as a taxpayer, than the people in Washington do. And I know
Absolutely.
Fix Buncombe is good for that, for helping get the word about who the candidates are that are going to be on the ballot in November. Our website also has a way to contact me. The easiest way is just Major Dave at electoraleducationfoundation.com. Hopefully you and I can bring this to another podcast sometime in the near future, and I'll show you some more of the puzzle.
That sounds lovely. Yes.
Thanks again for your time. You've been so generous, and I appreciate it.
Of course, absolutely. I thank you so much for coming on and talking to us, and I really appreciate you showing us all that. It's such great to have some visual aid with the things that you're talking about, especially because it makes it very clear, you know.
Right. Well, you know, there are a lot of people out there like the Seth Keshels and the Dr. Franks that are working with algorithms and theories and stuff, and I cannot touch that. I have to deal with the specific records. This
Mhm.
is what the state board's data showed one day, showed something different. Why did it change? Who changed it? That is the only thing that's going to carry any credibility, because I know I can walk into any courtroom in the state of North Carolina and show them exactly where my data came from. And because these files that come from the state board are all zip files, compressed files, when I
Mhm.
extract them, that data, that original file has not changed. So everything I've done can easily be duplicated by anybody else that would care to. Yep. I'm still working on your behalf, and I'll keep doing it till the day I die. Well, actually, no, I want to find some young data people so I can turn this over. I want to enjoy retired life to some degree, but I do love doing this, and I love working with people like you, because y'all are the ones who make it worthwhile.
Well, thank you. Well, we really appreciate all that you're doing, and let us know any way that we can help over here.
Awesome. Be happy to. And again, you can find me on Facebook as Major Dave or as David Goetze, either one. I have both. And actually, I post more on my personal page than I do on the Major Dave page. And that's just a factor of time. I just don't have a lot of time for social media. But I've got almost 5,000 followers already who follow my work, and they are the ones who keep me going, because I know that their vote counts. It has to count, and we have to make sure it's counted properly.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Anytime. We'll do another podcast whenever you've got a hole in your schedule.
Absolutely.
Got something you're dying to ask? Visit fixbuncombe.com and click on our podcast page to learn how to submit your question. Who knows? It could be on our next show.